All right.
And recycle.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Okay.
I'll now call to order the meeting of the members of the New York Job Development Authority, doing business as the Empire State Development Corporation for Wednesday, April 8th, 2015. The members have received the written materials in advance of this meeting, and they're free to ask questions at any time. As noted on the agenda posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items on the following agenda. To ensure maximum opportunity for participation, speakers representing themselves may speak for up to 2 minutes each, and those representing groups may speak for up to 4 minutes, one speaker per group. Speakers' comments may address only items considered at today's meeting. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the members whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to today's agenda. If so, I'd ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to that item. Hearing none. Thank you. I'll now ask a motion to approve the minutes of the February 2nd, 2015 and March 10th, 2015 members meeting.
Motion.
Motion second. Any question, comments, additions, or deletions with regard to the minutes? Motion to approve? We just didn't get it ourselves. Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Ray, will you present the remaining item on today's agenda? Before Ray begins his presentation, I'd like to note that this item was already analyzed and approved for presentation to the board by the Finance Committee members. Ray, please present the Rising Sun woodworking item.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, we were, at the last minute, we thought it'd be a good idea to send in the board members a review of what we did in 2014, our fiscal year end. We did it for information purposes, so if it's okay, we'd like to start with that. It'll take 5 minutes. So what we did was submit to all the board members what our loan status was for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2015. We're willing to answer any questions on it. What we try to do is show how we're growing the portfolio with strong loans. Our credit ratings for these portfolios have been good. Many of these projects are now moving forward and closing. Rob Kwan would like to go into detail about it.
Yes. Good morning. We thought it would be a good idea going forward, beginning of each fiscal year, to present all the JDA loans that we reviewed and submitted for approval. And this past fiscal year has been the most active in more than a decade in terms of all the loans that reviewed and was approved. And a lot of that has to do with Ray. He's doing an amazing job of marketing JDA. Everywhere we go, we hear Ray and JDA. So we're beginning to see that through all the great loans that we are reviewing and improving. So just for our review, if we could just go over the chart to see how many loans that we received and how many was reviewed and how many we rejected. So it gives us a good understanding how we're progressing. So with the chart in front of us, basically in the last fiscal year, we reviewed 20 loans. These were large $1 million+ loans, and currently of that we have 2 still under review, and 10 of those were either rejected because of poor credit or were withdrawn, and 8 of those loans were presented to the board and approved, and that consists of total amount was about almost $24 million, which is fairly large coming from where we started, which was pretty much zero for the earlier decade. So, and then we could do a breakdown of all the interesting projects that we looked at. The second page shows, starting from the fiscal year, of the projects that we looked at, the companies that we rejected, and the reason for that, and the amount, the size that was asking for. Some of these projects were presented to us by the region. They considered it very important, but we wanted to help the region to do this credit and establish a loan, but the credit was very risky. So we wanted to avoid. We are aware of what happened in the past with JDA. And we want to try to avoid that as best as possible. Start doing great loans, establish a great portfolio, and then start to begin taking a little more risks. So that's the kind of concept that we had in mind when we started reviewing these loans. And if there are any questions regarding specific loans that we reviewed, what we did with it, and why we.
I just had a question. Were any of the ones on this that says, let's say, withdrawn, were any of them approved and then they withdrew? Or were they all withdrawn and never came to the board?
They were withdrawn and was never presented to the board.
It could also be noted that there's 20 that were reviewed, and that means that we received full applications and full financials, because after an initial conversation with Ray, myself or the other underwriter, John Evan, would say, yes, we think there's something here, pursue it a little bit further. There's a lot of other projects where Ray will bring it to us and kind of just throw it against the wall and say, does this sound like there's some potential here? So even the number of 20 loan requests received doesn't reflect, a lot of the stuff that comes through our office. Because sometimes we'll say, Ray, there's no reason to even waste our time or your time, because we just know that this is not going to be a good credit. Push them in a different direction or otherwise. So that 20 number are full applications that we sit down and actually review the tax returns to do the underwriting on.
Do you have a good sense of why they do withdraw when they do? Is it because some of our terms are too onerous on them, or they didn't need us, they found full financing somewhere else, or what could you cite as the reasons why they withdraw versus us saying no?
I think each one is a little bit different, maybe. I know on some of these the project changed, became a moving target. On some of them, they were able to find financing elsewhere. On some of them, they kind of got maybe from us some signals that it might not be the greatest credit. So it might show up on here as withdrawn, but it might really be does not meet standards, because we never got to the point where we actually told them that they're not going to meet our standards. But they kind of, because we kept asking for more information, they might have gotten the idea that, okay, it doesn't look like JDA is going to be the route that we're going to go with this loan. I guess Ray can more to that.
I think one of the things, as a banker, what we try to do is tell folks that we're not going to waste your time. If we do a credit, we'll do the credit. And we're saying to folks, give me 10 days. Give us 10 business days. In 10 business days, we'll get back to you and tell you how we feel. We're not going to approve it in 10 business days, but we'll tell you we want to move forward with additional information. Many times, after we do the initial review, we realize this is probably not going to happen. So we have a very nice conversation with the client and maybe steer them to another direction. Tell them that JDA doesn't work. If JDA doesn't work, you probably won't get financing from the SBA. So the issue now is, how do you make this project work, or come back to us when you're ready? Some of them said they're going to come back to us. Some of them said they're going to come back to us after we told them it wasn't going to work. But most of the time, we're trying to be really, really clear with them as to what our guidelines are and what we're trying to do and whether it fits or doesn't fit within our economic development world.
And then just a status on one of the past approvals we made, this whole thing we had with the Gem Tower. What is the status of that? Because is that just dead and out, or where do we go with that? Gem Tower was before I started with JDA. So, but what I found is that the jewelers that are moving in find the terms that we're offering them a little onerous, right? And so, some of the debt service requirements we have. So, and also they're having difficulty filling that building. So the building's not totally occupied yet. But I think the majority of it, from our point of view, was the borrowers that we did speak to had mentioned to us that these terms are just a little onerous.
But I thought you were going to come back to us to explain what the terms, what the portions that they considered onerous, and we were going to take a look at.
Okay.
Weren't we?
Yeah, I just don't know the status of it. We should either, revisit it and decide if we want to move forward with it, or then just, or consider it take an action of the board to say this program is no longer viable. But I think we're sort of in limbo somewhere.
I will make sure that at the next board meeting, I'll have that information as to where we're at the program, what we're looking at, and make sure that we clarify it.
How much is actually sold in that building so far?
Okay, I can find that out.
Stuff like
The
that.
one client that we did approve,
Right.
A&S Diamond, at the end wound up just doing it on his own.
Okay.
He just took cash out of his pocket and just did it on his own. And he called me and said, "Ray, thanks, but I can just take the money out."
Okay. And just a quick question on this chart.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Bays in Albany.
Yep.
Couple things, if I could. First
Sure.
of all, Raphael, I think you made reference to something that you may have sent out in terms of a chart or something. I just wanted you to know that that did not reach me, so we would surely like to see that if, in fact, you forwarded that out to the board members. Beyond that, I just wanted to mention, for the benefit of the board, that I know you and I have been back and forth a little bit about the USDA Rural Development Business and Industry Loan Guarantee Program, and that is something, in terms of the risk, it's something that I know, should look at, in my opinion. You know, it's terrific that we've been focusing on some ag-related projects, but I guess I just wanted to emphasize that I think there are some opportunities for more outreach through that network, if we wanted to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We actually are pursuing becoming a lender under the SBA's business and industry program. What that would allow us to do is go into rural communities or the agricultural business and get an 80% guarantee from the SBA. So we applied once, and they turned us down because we didn't have enough volume. We didn't show that we had experience doing it. Now, with what we've done over the past year, I feel confident that we'll be able to get this done. I have spoken to the SBA already. They want us just to complete another application, which we're in the process of doing right now.
Are there a lot of lenders in New York State that offer that?
Quite a few, depending on mostly community banks, and so we're going to work with them. They're seeing that niche market as somewhere they can make some money on, so they're using the SBA guarantee to make these loans happen. And the rural communities have been defined as any community with 50,000 residents or less.
So that's what's underserved, that we would fill that market? Is
Yeah.
that what?
Well,
I just wanted to know if we're going to
Well,
be.
the process that we've been following is to look at working with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, which has done a whole study of small business credit.
I see.
So they've come in and presented, they've done questionnaires, we've sent out questionnaires as well. The underwriting team has also gone out to all the regional directors and their offices to talk about the JDA program, because a lot of the deal flow is coming in through the regional directors. And it's important for them to understand the full suite of products, including JDA, and the limitations and advantages of a JDA loan. We're now working very closely with DFS, Department of Financial Services, which has a whole committee set up already with all the state chartered banks, which are the ones that are, as opposed to the money center banks, are really out in the communities like the M&Ts, et cetera, who are closer to the small business market in the state of New York. And I think one of the things that happens is that New York City is such a dominant economy that we're really focused on all the parts of New York that are not New York City in terms of their banking. We're also working with Steve Cohen and the community development group at EF, because the CDFIs, the community development financial institutions, there's kind of a tiering of, really it relates to the size of the loan that you can do more than anything else.
Okay, that wasn't my question, though. My question was,
we
I just
SBA
wanted, let me finish.
Sure.
I just wanted to know if, in fact, we would be competing against some of the regional banks or the local banks. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but, there's a need for us to get into the market because there's certain communities that are not served. Is that
that's
what you're
absolutely
trying-
correct.
Okay,
Absolutely correct.
that
Absolutely
was my
correct.
question.
The agricultural industry as a whole
Yes.
is underserved.
Okay.
And so we're trying to fill a need, just a large gap there. So we're just trying to become a player in that industry. And, a lot of our offices are located near rural communities.
Right.
So we're
No,
working
I
with
think
them.
I think it's a wonderful suggestion and a great idea.
Yeah, and what about, have we ever looked at, where the state is targeted resources for economic development, in certain areas, and maybe for large companies, right, to come in, but those oftentimes spur the need for small satellite companies that serve those developments.
Right.
Can we find a niche to augment those major investments to help the smaller companies that are sort of byproducts of the bigger investment, if they're doing like a chip thing in
Right.
Albany, or if they're doing something in the southern tier, trying to, work hand in hand as part of a bigger targeted development initiative.
So to follow up what Margaret was saying is that we're working with the Federal Reserve of New York, and what Federal Reserve does is they do periodic surveys and very comprehensive. That we're working with them to try to generate what the business in New York needs and how we could help. And then we're working with them, and also we're going to try to do our own surveys. We've done surveys to CDFIs to see how we could work with them, how we could help them out to lend more to small businesses. And that's the progression that we're working on, research and development of products.
Does ag fit into that so far in your conversations with them?
To some degree, the agricultural market is a little different. I'm sure Jim can weigh in more than I can. You know, what we find is the farmer. It is the growth of the farm industry. And at one point, farming was dying out, but now it seems like even the children now are staying to farm. So what we found out, many of the farmers just don't have access to the credit. The banks, they're not really looking. I mean, Farm Credit East is doing a good job with it. So we want to help Farm Credit East and partner sometimes with Farm Credit East to get transactions done. We're looking at transaction now, which hopefully will come to the board soon. It's a yogurt manufacturer in Argyle, New York. Now, she's having a hard time getting Glens Falls National Bank to give any money. So we're going to work, hopefully put her under, she'll be our first test case for the ag and market
For an
SBA guarantee.
If you let me finish my questions, please. So for an SBA loan
Yes.
from this, but we have to be approved by
Right.
the SBA first.
Right.
And we're in process of doing that?
Yes, yes. We also have another program, the Minority Women Business Development Loan Program.
Mhm.
So she's a woman-owned business. So, you know, if she needs the money right away, instead of going through JDA, we may consider going to the Minority and Women Business Development Loan Program, which allows us to lend up to $500,000, subordinated to the bank.
Right.
So she needs $912,000. So we can somewhere in there play in this role. So again, it's the overall economic development efforts of finding all the pockets of money that we have at ESD and utilizing that money to help small businesses throughout the state.
Okay. Jim, do you want to say anything about your suggestion, what prompts it, or any suggestions on how we approach it?
Well, I have little doubt but what there are going to be opportunities for JDA involvement out there. I think it's going to vary, fairly considerably. But I think, as I said earlier, understanding the suite of programs that are available and making the right fit, whether it's agriculture or not, is where we need. It seems to me that's where we need to be. We need to be able to provide the best, most reasonable, targeted assistance that we can. If it happens to overlap with the regions around the planning, the way that that we're offering programs in New York here by region, great. But I have no doubt that what there's going to be applications, as we're seeing right now, where the JDA fits. I'm not really the best one to judge that. I think you folks are. But I do think there are opportunities for a good fit with the JDA and agriculture.
Cool.
Great.
Any other questions or comments on this impromptu sheet, summary sheet, ag? Okay. Do you want to get into the woodworking?
Yes, thank you. The board let me start. Staff is requesting board approval for a $408,000 loan to Rising Sun Woodworking, Inc. This, as Howard mentioned earlier, this loan was presented to the JDA Finance Committee, who approved us moving forward and presenting it to the full board. Rising Sun Woodworking opened in 1983 as a one-man shop operating out of a small garage in Riverhead, New York. In 1987, Rising Sun moved into a larger rented space at its current location, New York. Mattituck, New York. Rising Sun has requested JDA assistance to help in the purchase and renovation of a new 600 square foot manufacturing space at 4460 Depot Lane in Catchall, New York. Total project cost will be $1.6 million, of which $1.2 million will be for real estate acquisition. The owner will contribute $120,000 in equity, and Bridge Hampton Bank, a local community bank, has agreed to finance the rest of the property purchase of $1 million. Bridgehampton will also provide the bridge financing for the project. And once the project is completed, we'll come back to JDA and we'll reimburse them for the agreed upon amount. In January 2015, Rising Sun signed an incentive offer from ESD for a grant of up to $19,500 to acquire a $96,000 computer-aided cutting machine to improve the capability of its woodworking operation. The new location will allow Rising Sun to consolidate operations under one roof and retain and attract technically proficient woodworkers by providing superior and optimal planned work environment. Currently, the average salary at Rising Woodwork is $57,000. The company will also be able to better control its electrical costs with the installation of efficient lighting, enhanced insulation, and passive and active solar systems. I should mention that the owner wanted me to make sure I emphasize the fact that he provides healthcare services for them, he provides a healthcare plan and a 401k retirement plan. In conclusion, staff believes that with JDA assistance, Rising Sun can meet the goals it has set. We have reviewed the historical and projected financial statements, along with the marketing analysis showing that increase in high-end home sales in the Long Island will be the impetus to help the company grow. We believe that the company currently generates sufficient cash flow from operations to service the debt, and there are adequate collateral and guarantees to mitigate the risk involved with the request. With that, I open up for any questions.
Any questions or comments from the members on this? Any comments from the public on this? We'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, thank you. We have no further business that I'm aware of unless you have another surprise for us.
No, Howard, I don't have a surprise, you know.
To adjourn?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Good.